Good evening, everyone, and welcome back to the I Have a Voice Caregiver Advocacy Series. This series takes place every other Wednesday at 7 p.m. right here on the Greater Richmond Scans Facebook page. As you may know, my name is Olivia Wilson, and I'm the Trauma-Informed Parent Engagement Coordinator with Greater Richmond Scan. And I'm joined by my amazing colleague, Tamika Daniel, who is the Behavioral Health Community Organizer, also for Greater Richmond Scan. Tamika is an Easton community resident and mother to 4 children. She began advocating for the needs of her son who has autism, which led her to advocating on a larger scale in the 10 years of not being employed. She began as SCAN's Behavioral Health Community Organizer in August of 2019 through a partnership with Richmond Memorial Health Foundation. Utilizing her expertise and experience, she brings SCAN's work in adverse childhood experiences, trauma, and resilience to the community through trainings and forums. She also assists in building resilience and facilitating healing through empowerment and connection through a trauma-informed and equity lens. Additionally, she brings her voice and advocacy to meetings and tables throughout the community. Tamika, it's so good to see you again. I also have the pleasure to introduce 2 special guests joining us today. First, I want to introduce Tisha Erby. Tisha is a proud mom of 5 boys and is also a community advocate. And so, Tisha, welcome. We're so grateful to have you with us today. Next, I want to introduce Lucy Cantrell. Lucy has been serving as the Director of Information and Referral at the ARC of Virginia since 2016. Lucy helps individuals with developmental disabilities and their families navigate Virginia's complex services system and fulfill their dreams by providing viable connections, information, tools, and guidance. Her work also includes advocating and bringing the critical needs and challenging issues facing people to the attention of policymakers and others to heighten awareness and bring about change so that people can reach their goals for independence as well as members of their communities. Thank you again, Lucy and Tisha, for joining us for this very important conversation. I'm actually going to hand it off to Tamika to share more about what our focus will be, the focus of our discussion will be for today.
So good evening, everyone, and thank you for joining us. Tonight's conversation will focus on rest. Many of you tuning in tonight may be parents and caregivers of children. Some of you, like me, may be parents of children with disabilities. Some of you may be caring for loved ones who are older in age, or you may be someone with a dual role of caregiver for children and older adults. Acknowledging how stressful and tiring our caregiving roles can be, we wanted to talk about the role of rest, why it is important for parents and caregivers to rest, how to find rest, and how to advocate for help when it's needed. And I'm going to toss it back over to Olivia so we can get these questions started.
Awesome. Thank you for that, Tamika. And so I mentioned that we have 2 special guests. We have Tisha, and then we also have Lucy. And we really wanted to, Lucy is here, is representing an organization. And so Lucy, we would like to actually start with you and want to ask if you can share a little bit about the ARC of Virginia in general and what they do so our viewers can just learn more about the ARC of Virginia as we go deeper into the conversation.
Sorry, thank you very much, Olivia and our other folks who are here at this meeting. The ARC of Virginia, we are a grassroots organization, and we have been on the front lines making change happen for people with developmental disabilities, very young children who are at risk of a disability for over 60 years. We are part of a nationwide network of ARCs, and advocacy is really our main thrust. And so through our public policy efforts, we've achieved legislative victories for children and adults and their families on both the local, state, and the federal level. So a little bit more pared down to what we can provide and offer to families here at the ARC of Virginia. We work with individuals who have developmental disabilities and their families to make sure that they have the tools, the information, that they can advocate for themselves, or we can help them advocate and understand Virginia's complex system, as you mentioned earlier, because there is no manual. As we all know, if you have a child or you have an aging caregiver, aging parent that you have to be a caregiver for, there really is no manual out there that tells you how all of this works. So we are here to help individuals and families throughout the lifespan to find the supports that they need to live what we call a life like yours.
Yeah. Thank you so much, Lucy. That's very helpful for me to learn about what the ARC of Virginia does and have been doing, as you mentioned, for 60 years or over 60 years, and how it's connected to a national, you said national arts. And I love how you kind of honed in on talking about what that can really look like for individuals or caregivers who are caring for aging parents or for, again, their children with disabilities, so that they can live lives that are like ours. And if I can maybe say that in a different way, lives that are as normal as possible, right? Lives that don't allow them to feel isolated or different or marginalized or, cast out. And so I really appreciate you being here to share more about how we can help our families advocate or get connected to organizations like you with support for advocating. And so with that, we're focusing on this area of rest when it comes to caregivers. And when I think of the word rest, I have learned about another term called respite or respite care. And so wanted to open it up to everyone on the Zoom to just see, to ask, how do you define rest, or excuse me, what is respite care? Let's start there. What is respite care?
So can I jump in on that first?
You sure can.
Okay. Respite care, and it's very nice that it's related to the word rest, because they're very connected. All human beings need rest. And then for respite care, we're talking about temporary or short-term care that's provided for a person who provides care for another person, such as an aging caregiver, such as a person with a disability or a young child. So we're giving the caregiver, the parent, a break from that constant care. And it may only be for an hour, or respite care can be for several days or longer. Because as a caregiver, if you're not taking care of yourself and getting those breaks, then you're not going to be able to be a caregiver.
Absolutely. That is so key. That's so important. That respite care is this opportunity for someone to come and help and provide relief for that caregiver who might be a caregiver of an aging parent or a young children, or caring for someone with disabilities. It's an opportunity for them to take a break, whether it's for well, it's temporary altogether, but it can be as short as what you said, Lucy. It can be anywhere from an hour to, or can last up to several days. Any other thoughts about respite care?
I think it's really important for people to know that respite care is not anything to be ashamed of. In fact, it's a very strong person who says, I need help, I need respite care, or can you provide some support for me for different aspects so that I can continue to be that caregiver. And respite care should be very person-centered to the caregiver and to the individual who will be providing, who will receive, that temporary care while their primary caregiver is able to do some other things that they need to do and get some rest.
Absolutely. That actually connects very well to a question that I have had, just asking, why is it important? I know that might sound like a rhetorical question. Why is it important to rest? But I think you're hitting on some really important points there, Lucy, about why should we even be talking about rest and why it's important to rest. Want to hear from others. Why is it important to talk about rest in terms of caregivers?
I'm gonna be truthful and be honest. I don't know the definition of rest. In my household, I don't get rest. As you can see, I'm a mom of 5. I would love to get some rest. I know they say when you go to school, you're supposed to get at least 7 to 8 hours of rest. I don't get that much. I give or take 2 to 3 hours, and then like, cause I'm a mom of a younger one, so it's like I'm waking up in the middle of the night feeding. So it's like I need rest, but I try to push hard for my kids.
Tamika, what would you say? Why is it important for caregivers to rest, or parents and caregivers to rest?
Like Tisha said, I was that parent too. You know, I was not resting. I was the Energizer Bunny because, you know, it was just me, and I felt like I had to do everything. I had to be Superwoman, so I wasn't getting rest. It didn't change for me until my body started shutting down on me. And to me, that's why it's important, because if you don't learn to rest on your own, your body will do it for you. And that's why now a lot of people can't tell, but my nose is crooked because I passed out on my bathroom toilet and hit my face on a radiator. And coming to find out, it was from stress. I was overwhelmed. And my kids found me, blood on the floor and everything. And I never want that to happen again. I never want them to be witness to that again. And I can only do my best for them if I'm at my best.
Absolutely. And I think we kind of just heard a full connection there. You know, while Lucy, you were talking about what respite care is and why we should not be ashamed to talk about respite care and to even consider seeking respite care, because number one, we have to give our bodies rest. You know, we are, as you know, we can only do as much as our bodies will allow. And if we don't give our bodies rest, we can face some pretty hard consequences, like the one, Tamika, you just mentioned, or like Tisha mentioned. You know, it becomes non-existent to where we don't even know what it is, what it feels like. It's so foreign that we don't even know how to even begin to rest, or, you know, what it looks like, what it means to rest. And so that's why we're having this conversation. And so circling back to respite care, let's talk about how parents and caregivers can get connected to first learn about respite care options, and are there eligibility criteria? So Lucy, I'm gonna hand this one to you. How can caregivers learn about respite care options, and if there's an eligibility criteria that we should know about?
Sorry, I'm so slow on the unmuting.
Okay, Lucy.
So this is a huge topic right here that we could probably spend a lot of time on, but I kind of suggest to people, think about the circles that are around your life. You have people who may live in your immediate household, you have extended family, and sometimes families who are overloaded with caregiving, they kind of lose some of those circles. They lose connection with other supports because they're so caught up, exhausted, as we just heard, from Tisha and Tamika with just trying to get through the day and the night and provide the care that's needed. But look at everyone who's around you and see if they have information. Talk to other people who maybe are in the same situation as you, or maybe they have been in the past, and see what information they have to give you. So extending that circle a little bit out, if you have a child in school, be sure to let the teacher, if your child has an IEP, bring that up in IEP meetings. Say, hey, you know, I could really use some respite care. Can anybody here give me some information and ideas? Look for Facebook groups. There are Facebook groups or online groups that could be very helpful to you. Then there are also, and I'm pretty focused on children, very young children who are at risk for disabilities, and of course, the disability age lifespan. But get in touch with advocacy and family support groups. They provide information on this. They can inform you about informal ways to find respite care where there might be funding sources. You know, pre-COVID, we had a lot more available to us. And so I don't think many people have had much rest for the past year or not. So this is such a timely topic. And hopefully things are opening back up and we'll have some of those respite sources available to us. Some churches and faith communities provide respite opportunities, for example, Saturday afternoons or times at night where parents can go and drop their children off and get some respite. So there are some of those opportunities that we had more available pre-COVID. If you're using, back to family support groups, groups like the ARC of Virginia, our local ARCs, autism societies. The ARC of Virginia encompasses all disabilities, so we're kind of a one-stop shop for everybody. We're not disability specific, but if your child has a specific disability, maybe there is a group that particularly focuses on that disability. So there'll be parents and other people in that arena who can provide suggestions, ideas, and then they will have staff who are well-versed in what might be available to you. So I would certainly suggest getting in touch with family support groups. And if people need help finding them, feel free to contact me at any time. And we can help you get connected, and we can also help you with finding some of those respite opportunities that are out there. If you're using any public services, such as the Department of Social Services, or if you're connected with your local community services board, in Richmond, it's called Richmond Behavioral Health Authority, Henrico Area Mental Health and Developmental Services, Chesterfield CSB, et cetera. They are also a source for information and possibly funding resources for you. For a population that meets the criteria, people with developmental disabilities, there are Medicaid waivers, which pay for respite care. And that's one of the areas that we work very closely with families and have presentations on how to access Medicaid waivers, and then where in your community there might be respite programs, or how you can pay for respite services. So that's kind of a big umbrella. There's lots more details, and of course, more we want to get into that, that's fine with me.
Absolutely. So like you said, Lucy, that was a lot, but just great information though. I can honestly say that I was familiar with the term respite care and kind of knew of respite care in one context based on like a previous role, social worker role that I had, but to learn about respite care and how it can be available for a lot of different reasons, for a lot of different caregivers, and the different places we can go to seek to learn more information and to get connected is new information for me. And I really appreciate how you started from seeking internally from like your close networks, your close circles, and then expanding out into looking into like other, community sources, whether it's faith-based, whether it's community services, and then looking into larger agencies. I really appreciate how you even deliver the information and explaining where we can go to learn about respite care. I want to open it up to Tamika and Tisha. See if you all had any thoughts or questions just about this new information that Lucy is sharing.
I think she was spot on with everything. I know for me, I didn't know what respite was. I ended up finding out through RBHA and my son's case manager, and I found out about places like St. Joseph's Villa and things of that nature. And then I also found out that when I was a PCA, that they offer it to certain places offer it. Like the nurse that's assigned to the case can actually come in, for maybe like an hour or two, like Lucy said earlier on, they could come in for like an extra hour or a couple hours on a separate day and, sit. And it's just for, the caregiver to go out, maybe go to the movies or just anything. But I found out that they offer it that way too. So it was interesting to find all of those things out when I finally learned about it.
And I just want to chime in there. I like I talked about, there's not a book for people. We get calls from people all the time. And the reason we do this is because people don't even know where to start. I frequently get calls from, say, somebody who's in Tisha's situation, like, I don't even know what I need to ask. I don't even know what I need to know. So we're here to make sure that here is what is available. Tell us what you need at this point, and we will navigate you through that system.
Absolutely. I wanted to make sure Tisha didn't want to comment before I mention something else.
Yeah, I'm the same way. I just had to Google it because I never even heard of that word. And then when I look into it, I was like, oh, wow, that's me. But yeah, like they say, you learn something new every day. So thank you, Miss Lucy.
Absolutely. And Lucy, you mentioned when you were describing what respite care is, and you also wanted to send a message that it's something that we should not be ashamed about. That led me to wanting to ask, are there, what are some barriers? So we also wanted to ask about stigmas related to care, but I think before we get to that, in terms of learning about respite care and even accessing it, are there some barriers that are some barriers that people sometimes face that's important to highlight?
I'm sure Tamika and Tisha probably have ideas about this too, but I think the first barrier is just not knowing where to turn. That, where can I get this information? So I think information is a huge barrier. And then you have to know how to ask the questions. You have to know what information you need to ask. You have to not feel ashamed or guilty about anything, concerns you have about if you used respite care, if somebody else was caring for your aging caregiver or caring for your young child or teenager. You have to feel comfortable asking those questions. So I think oftentimes the barrier is on the part of the soon-to-be exhausted caregiver, who just doesn't feel confident where to go, what to say, how to ask those questions. And so just accessing that information, I think, is just one of the hugest barriers, besides our own different cultures have different stigmas about it, which I know you wanted to get into later. And I imagine Tamika and Tisha have other thoughts on that too.
I know the big barrier for me was, like Tisha said, I didn't know what it was. Like, and I think that's a big part of all of the reason why I'm doing what I'm doing, because when my son was diagnosed with autism, I didn't have people knocking down my door giving me information or resources. Like it's been like an uphill battle. So it's like Lucy said, it is so many resources out there. And once I got hooked up with RBHA, that was kind of when, I learned more about it. I learned about, okay, St. Joseph's Villa offer it. Then, as Lucy was saying about the waiver list, my son is on there, and it was funding out there for it. And this is all of these things that I'd had no clue about had I not been connected with RBHA. So I can only imagine for the people that's not connected with them that it's even harder. But I was one of those parents. I never took up the offer of getting respite care for my son because I didn't really, felt like I needed it back then. But yeah, he could have went to St. Joseph's Villa for the weekend, and the funding from the wait list that he was on would have paid for it. So I just think like one of the biggest barriers is just lack of information. People simply just don't know.
Absolutely. And that's why I'm really glad that we're having this conversation. And I'm glad that we have you all tuning in and watching. And we want you to share this video to your friends, to your family members, because we want to help increase access to information and help this information to become more readily available, because we downplay rest, right? Not intentionally, because I think, Tisha, if you wouldn't not accept rest if it was something easy to obtain, right? But at the same time, we downplay it because, as Tamika said, we, for many different reasons, we become conditioned or, get into a routine. And when we get responsibilities, we get caught up in this space, in this cycle of having to just do what we need to do. And I think those were your words, Tisha. You just got to do what you got to do. When your hands are full, you got to make sure your little people are cared for. And so we just get in this routine where, like, it leads to exhaustion, and that's what we don't want to happen. And so that's why we want to raise the awareness about resting and advocating, or getting connected to resources and supports to help us get rest when we know that we can't really make it happen on our own sometimes. So I'm appreciative of what's being shared already. And so we talked about barriers and connected to that, but what I think might be slightly different is not just barriers, but maybe even stigmas. Are there stigmas around respite care, whether in an informal way or a formal way? What stigmas exist around accepting or receiving that type of support?
I'll start first. I know, like, and I mention this all the time on these recordings, but in some, cultures, it's, you had these children, they're your responsibility. And I still hear it sometimes, like, you don't get no break. You don't, you had children, you got to do what you got to do. You got to take care of them. And such didn't have a break. You don't get no break. And, so it's like sometimes when you go outside it's like, you know, you're taking the easy way out. Or you shouldn't have never laid down and had children if you wasn't going to take care of them. So I know for a lot of people that's hard. I know for me, part of that played into mine because it's like I'm not working, I'm at home. I don't need no break. Like, why I need a break for? And I didn't understand that even though I wasn't working, I was working. And I'm pretty sure, Tisha, you can relate to me. So, yeah, that's like the biggest stigma, like feeling like you don't deserve that. Like you don't deserve that. Or if you're weak, if you do.
Tisha, what do you think about that? Those stigmas around accepting services or support like respite care, accepting help, acknowledging that you need rest and someone can help you. What are some stigmas around whether, and you can speak for yourself or just what do you think in general? What do you think those stigmas are?
Oh, where can I begin? With me, I'm the type of person, and mom never say no. I have a bad habit of that. I let a lot of things go, and I try not to ask for help. I try to do it all on my own, and I'm still suffering with that. I need to learn how to just stop, and when people ask me or offer me to help, just take it. I don't want to seem like I want a handout or anything like that. If that's the type of word, but I'm still learning. I'm still growing because I'm like overprotective of my kids, and my kids know that. I don't let them go outside to play with other people because it's just a lot of stuff goes on in the world, and then just a busy day like now, they all in virtual learning, so that's very, very stressful. I make it look easy, but it's not easy. It's easy when you have a little bit of time for it, but when you have like a all day thing and multiple kids, it's not easy. It's a headache. So it's like, as I was saying about rest, I need rest now, but I can't get rest because they're up and I can't take a nap. If something happens, it's gonna be on me. But I'm still learning how to take a break, even if it's 5 minute, 10-minute break. So like, I don't know if this off subject, whatever. Like my breaks is when I go to the bathroom. But half the time it's not even the bathroom because they standing at the door. So it's like, oh, either peeping under it. So it's like, where's the break at? So like the majority of the break that I get is when they're sleeping. So, and it's like people say, oh, you need to rest. Like you have a newborn baby. You need to sleep when the baby is asleep. No, I'm up here cleaning, getting things ready for when that baby do wake up. So it's just, it's just a time, some people are thankful and blessed to have two parents or family members to help out. But a lot of people is not fortunate to have that. I am, and then again, I'm not. So it's like, I just don't rely on a lot of help. I try to do it all on my own. If to answer the question, sorry.
It actually does answer the question. And I'm going to invite Lucy back in, but I just wanted to highlight kind of some of the themes that I heard from both yours and Tamika's responses in terms of the stigma. One I heard is that there's this stigma that or this belief that comes about that you don't deserve rest because there's this misconception that even if you are a caregiver and your sole response in your job is to care for the people within your care, and people don't see that as a job. They don't see how you can get tired or how you can need work, how you can need a break and rest from that. And so there's that stigma of being a caregiver not seeming like actual work. And then I also heard some other things about just, like you said, kind of just developing this mindset that I got to keep going no matter what. And how those perspectives are being influenced by just society, outside people. Tisha, I also heard another stigma around trust. And I don't know, you kind of hit on it, but didn't stay on it. But I think that's a big one too, is that you're overprotective, right? You're protective of your children. And sometimes we don't trust other people to care for our children. And those can be some valid reasons there. And so just a couple of things that I heard you all say, and I want to ask Lucy to jump back in. to even see if you have like a response or some additional insights about, are these some stigmas that you often hear when you're working with people? Are these some of the same concerns that they have when they are hesitant about accepting, either asking for help or accepting the help?
The word absolutely is so overused, I'm getting sick of it, but I do have to say absolutely, the things that were just brought up, if people, I hear it a lot, and then the people who aren't saying it, I think they're afraid to say it. So that is truth just through and through. You said it so well. I think one of the other stigmas is I'm ashamed, or people are going to judge me because maybe I don't have money to pay for it. I think that's something that people often run up against. We're fearful that we may be failing our child or the person that we're providing care to, but you know what? Humans were not built to be 24-hour caregivers. And both of you who represent so many people, in fact, you're reminding me of myself when my son was born, and I don't think he slept for 3 years through the night. So it's absolutely exhausting, and we have to be able to get to the point where people know what's available, and that those of us who are walking in these shoes, we need to raise our voices up. And that's why I'm so glad that Tamika and Tisha are here talking about this, and that Stan is providing this information. Olivia, I'm not sure if I answered the way you wanted me to, but that's just what was rolling out of my head right now.
Muted. Sorry about that. I was muted. I said absolutely, and I was like, oop, I used that word again, but I said yes, for sure. You definitely responded in the way that I was looking for, and I appreciated you adding the additional, some additional stigmas that we didn't mention, because I think it's helpful, like you said, that even if people aren't saying what these things are, we can imagine that they're thinking them. And so being able to say them out loud and letting people know that we hear your thoughts, even if you don't say it aloud, we hear your thoughts, and we acknowledge them. And so, I think it's important that we put voices to those concerns, those stigmas, so we can work towards, I guess, help taking some steps to reduce the stigmas. And I wonder what that can look like. What are some steps that can be taken to help reduce the fears, reduce the stigmas, maybe build trust? Could be one way. I'll throw that out first. What are some steps we can take to help reduce some of the concerns that people may have when it comes to considering respite care, or considering help from other type of supports, whether it's just from a family member, a neighbor, or another professional service?
I know I'll say for me, like the biggest thing for me was research. Like what Tisha was saying, like when she said she's overprotective, when you're overprotective, like you're gonna want to know everything. You gotta look this up. I need to know, I need to see your reviews, I need to do this, I need to talk to some people who don't work with you before. I need to know, what's the outcomes of the people you work with. Like I think research is like the best thing. And having an open mind. I was closed-minded for a real long time because I had that mindset, like Tisha said, that I have to do it myself. Like these are my children, it's my job, my responsibility. So, it was just me. I didn't want to ask for help. I didn't want to. So I was just closed off. And, once I opened up and had an open mind, it was like sky's the limit. Like I tell people all the time, like I'm a single mother, but I'm not technically, I'm not, because my village is that big. My village is that strong. And, it's made a world of difference for me. So, like I say, of course, your research, because our babies are our most prized possession. Our parents, our older uncles and aunts, or whoever you're caring for, they're our most prized possession. So we, take pride in that and research and being open-minded.
That's really good. I appreciate that, Tamika. When we have some concerns, when we don't know, one of the best ways to help us kind of challenge those fears is to gain more access to learn more about what it is that we are what's being suggested to us, or what we're considering is learn more about it to see how maybe the questions and the fears that you have, how that can be helped, how those questions can be answered. I love what you say, reach out, connect to people who may have utilized these services or they've used respite care before, and what was their experiences like. So learning about other people's experiences and just researching, I think that is a great step that we can take to help reduce the stigmas. And when we say stigmas, it can be all types of things like we shared earlier, whether it's fear, whether it's feeling ashamed, whether it's fear of like we said, being overprotective of our children, whether it's all these different things that were stated. Any other ideas or steps that we can take to help reduce stigma around accepting help when we need rest, when we need to take a break, and specifically help around just respite care?
I just want to say, I think it is so important for families, primary caregivers who need respite to raise your voices, like this, what's happening now in this conversation is so important to raise your voices. And part of what the ARC of Virginia does, of course, we do a lot of advocacy and working with the General Assembly to fund more of these services, to make them more available. But the thing that has the most impact is when policymakers, when the funders, for example, the Virginia General Assembly, your elected representatives hear from you. And we would encourage anybody who's listening to this who wants to be a part of making change and willing to let your voice be heard. There are plenty of other people that walk in the same shoes that you do. And from a policy funding level, people who are in it are the best voices to be heard. And we need to start, I think we need to change our educational system some so that we learn about this when we're in high school. We learn about, your family could end up with this, that, or the other. Maybe right now you have your aging grandmother living with you. So what's available to you? Raise awareness among younger people, pre-mothers, pre-families, that there's help.
Absolutely, Lucy. I think you definitely kind of hit on something that I think I would 100% agree. Like, really looking at how we're educating, how we're getting that information out, where and when, at what points in life, instead of, like we said, family members, primary caregivers, getting to the point of exhaustion or about to reach exhaustion and then trying to find and get at, learn. But how about that we start to make the information about these type of supports and services available at a very early age, at an earlier point in people's lives, so that they can better prepare and feel more equipped on how to navigate these systems, as you mentioned when we first got started. And so I think that is so key as well, and I appreciate you mentioning that. I know that we are coming close to the end of our time, but wanted to still just ask maybe two more questions. And we've been talking about caregivers who feel like they have to do it all on their own, meaning provide the care all on their own without any help or support, or maybe they feel uncomfortable with receiving or accepting outside support. Before we end our conversation today, I want us to encourage those individuals how to find ways to still incorporate breaks or find rest through their day. So speaking to the caregivers, the parents and the caregivers who still feel like they have to do it on their own, or that they're just, rightfully in their own right, they're uncomfortable with the outside support. How can we still encourage them to find ways to incorporate breaks or find rest throughout their days? What can they do?
Tisha, I think you'll be good at this. You gave us some good tips earlier.
I'm gonna just be, I don't know for anyway, I'm gonna just speak for me. I'll just be honest.
Please do.
My breaks would be like, it won't be like a break like your ordinary break. Let's see. Like my breaks is, I'm artsy, so I take a time to like draw. Or as you see, my living room is a classroom, so I take the time to be creative. Like if I know my kids are going to be virtual, they never step foot in the school building or classroom themselves, so I try to bring that school building feeling into their home, so they'll know that we don't know if we're going to be out of school again. So it's just having it at home, so they'll know what a desk looks like, a chair looks like, or anything dealing with school-wise, they know what it is. Or it used to be watching my favorite TV show or whatever, but kids took over the TVs and stuff, so I can't watch my shows no more. It's like sometimes I have to record it or watch it on my phone or something, or like cook or something. But it's like when you cook and like you're hungry and you make a dinner or something like that, you're doing all the fixing. You don't even want to eat it by the time it's already done. So like Jordan, just my breaks is being around my kids, just see them smile, take them out to the park, to the it used to be like Toys R Us, but we don't have that no more. They need to bring it back. Chuck E. Cheese and stuff like that. So like I said, when they sleep, that's when mostly I get my rest in. And then sometimes that rest don't even be like a sleeping rest. It's just to get things ready for the next day. If that answers your question, sorry.
You making that distinguisher there, because that's something I thought about early when we were talking about rest, that rest may not necessarily be sleep, right? Though sleep is important, I'll always advocate for sleep, but rest can be, it doesn't necessarily mean going to sleep, but it is meaning how do you give your body and your brain just a break to reset, to kind of connect with yourself, to rejuvenate. And so I appreciate you making that distinguish there. And I appreciate all of the ways that you have tried to find rest. Because what I appreciate is that you acknowledge that it's not easy, right? It's not easy. But it sounds like to me on a day-to-day basis, you are constantly, trial and error and figuring out ways that throughout your day, because we're talking about rest throughout the day, right? Little moments that allow you to kind of just reset, either disconnect or reconnect. And so I really appreciate you trying. And when one thing works and then it don't work again, you try to find something else. And just to highlight a couple of things, you talked about, leaning into your creativity, finding a few moments to color or to draw, finding a few moments just to maybe watch a video or a show. You said the bathroom used to work, but that kind of got overtaken. But I think the idea of what you are suggesting is very helpful. And I think it is easy for us to kind of think about how they don't work versus just trying them out. And as those options and ideas kind of lose its effectiveness, we keep looking for some other ways rather than just giving up on finding rest or taking breaks. Anyone else?
Yeah, that's part of the reason why I wanted Tisha on here, because I'm the mom that when I come home from work, my children know y'all got the living room, even though my big TV down there, like Tisha said, they took over it. So they know I don't want nobody in my room. I like my candles, cut on my music. This is my space. Do not enter my room if nobody is hurt. Y'all got the food downstairs, y'all got the TV, y'all got everything downstairs. Leave me be in my room. But I wanted Tisha on here because after talking to her, I realized that I'm relatable for some, and she's relatable for some, because for a lot, it's just not possible. No matter how much you want to rest, it's just not possible. So, like you said, those little breaks in between of you tapping into your creativity, that's helping somebody whose schedule looks a lot like yours. Because I'm going to be honest with you, I thought she was in a classroom this whole time. Each time I'm talking to you, I thought she was in a classroom. It looks just like a classroom. So I thank you and I appreciate you. Look, I appreciate you because this is life for a lot of caregivers and parents out here. So I talk about the rest in one aspect because that's what works for me. But what you do works for you and it works for a lot of other people. So like you said, Olivia, rest looks different to everybody. It could mean sleep. It could mean the little 5 minutes you get in the bathroom before somebody knocking on the door. You can't even get that, like Tisha said. But it looks different for everybody, and I want people to feel comfortable in whatever life track they're on, however they're busy they are, however much free time they may have. Like, do what works for you.
I thoroughly appreciated this conversation. I'm inspired, and I can't wait to continue to share. And I'm putting all of these resources in my pocket, and I can't wait to share them with others. But before we go, I just want to open it up to see if there are any last or parting thoughts that anyone has to say. Lucy, we truly appreciate all of the knowledge and the education about respite care and the work of the Arc of Virginia. Any final thoughts or parting thoughts that you might want to share? And again, for anyone else.
I would just like to say, caregivers have to remember that you don't have to be the superhero. And if you're not taking care of yourself, you're not going to be able to take care of your other loved ones. So you got to make yourself number one, at least a few minutes of every day. And just one other thing I want to mention. I'm going over time. I hope sometimes everybody occasionally has someone say to them, is there anything I can do for you? And sometimes we hear that, we just go, oh, no, everything's fine. But maybe think, if someone does say that to you, have a few things in your mind of like, it'd really be helpful if on Saturday you could go to the grocery store for me. I'll give you my grocery list, or something like that. If you have a lawn that needs to be mowed, take people up on those offers. If you get them, and I hope you do.
I love it, Lucy. I love it. Yes.
I had one parting thing to say, and I know this is typically for the caregivers and parents and things of that nature, but just from experience to any professionals that may be watching and organizations that may be watching or tuning in, please try to be more intentional about how you get the information out about what resources you guys have and what you guys offer, because for a lot of us, we don't know. We don't know. And that's the main reason for a lot of us not speaking up. We don't know these things exist. The information is not being dropped in their laps. So I would just say try to be more intentional about how you reach out to people.
Absolutely.
Sorry.
I was just gonna say that was spot on. Go, Tisha.
That statement for Miss Lucy, what she said. So I'm not laughing just to be laughing. I'm laughing because I feel you and I hear you, I understand you. But I'm gonna disagree when you ask for, like, say, for help for make groceries or cutting grass. One, as my kids already know, I love cutting grass. So like, if somebody asks me to cut grass, no, I cut grass. No, I do that.
We do it for money.
Look, my kids, they try to say we do it for money. No, I cut grass because I love cutting grass. As you know, I have 5 boys, so I'm a boy mom. So all the boy manning things I like to do. I don't know why. I guess God blessed me with boys. If I had a girl, I wouldn't even know what to do. But groceries, I'm a little picky on my food and stuff like that. So it's like I'll do that. And it's like my 5-year-old, he's the one out of my 5 always asks me, is there anything you want me to do, Mom? And I'm like, oh, I wish it was for something you could do, but you're too young. I'm like, yeah, it's just, just give me a break, But my other kids, they ask me, I'm like, yeah, go wash the dishes. Go do that. You want to do something? Go ahead. Leave some stress off of me. But yes, I totally understand. But yes, to the cutting grass,
I love it, Tisha. I really appreciate that. And honestly, I think even if it's things that, so like I would still encourage, like outside of the things that you truly love to do, I really just love the idea of, we may not. So it could be that some of us may not always have that person that's asking, is there anything you need? But if there is, even if it's seldom, surprise them once in a while with a little list. And so I really want to just piggyback on that and encourage you to learn to say yes once in a blue to something that somebody can do that you feel like they can do without it being exactly the way you would do it. And that's hard. This is you talking to someone who likes things done her way too. So let's learn to say yes to the right things and obviously no to the things that we don't need to do to make sure that we're maintaining that balance. So I am just so grateful for each and every one of you. I'm so glad that I had an opportunity to be a part of this conversation. Tamika, do you want to close us out?
Yes, we've come to the end of our time today, but thank you again, Lucy and Tisha. This was a good conversation and it was great chatting with you guys today. So I just want to thank you again for taking the time out of your busy schedules for that. And thank you everyone for tuning in. We hope you found this conversation informative and empowering. And we will be back on June 9th at 7 p.m. on our Facebook Live for our next topic of advocacy and finances. Take care, and we look forward to staying connected.